Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Love of Pages. I'm struggling because there's a slight delay between Jessica and Steven, who were both trying to count me down. And so we were about half a second off.
It's great.
It's fine.
It's definitely befitting this week. So we are still reading The Forever War, courtesy of Stephen Clark.
Yeah. It feels so weird to hold up a physical book when we all talk about the book.
Yeah, well, I, in fact, because I was working off the digital, but I went into our library.
Yeah, there's the little thing on the spine.
Yay!
Shout out libraries.
I got mine from notasponsorbookoutlet.com. So significantly discounted. I love that.
Yeah. Sorry, I got a notification from Craig.
Was it the one where Craig goes like, "I'm leaving, but I'm still recording. Don't worry."
It says I've experienced a disconnect.
Ugh.
I mean, it's still here, and I've got local recording here too.
Perfect. These are the fun things that you deal with, dear listeners, while recording a podcast.
Yeah.
I know. What's happening? The technology is failing.
So exciting. So
we're in portion 2 of this book. The book is handily divided into 3 portions already. So
it's very convenient for us, and they're labeled based upon his rank at the time, which I thought was very, very helpful. Although it did kind of clue me in. I mean, because I feel like it definitely gave the spoiler away to going from the second to the third part.
Yeah, absolutely.
By having it named that way, but it's also kind of like that's what you would expect anyway. So,
I mean, the title does say Forever War.
Yeah, constantly in it. But so we open back up, and he has been promoted to sergeant. Mandela. And so he's in charge of his group. It doesn't sound like they replaced very many, just a few. Mm-hmm. But they have left Stargate, which is the big base. Yeah. So this book was written in 1974, we said last time?
I think that's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When did Stargate, the TV show, come out?
So the movie would have happened in the early 90s, and then the TV show followed shortly afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this definitely predates that.
Yeah, and I think they don't say Stargate in the book that Stargate is taking its theory from, Chariot of the Gods. I don't think they say Stargate in there either, because that book would have been older than the movie.
In the movie. I was just curious. But actually, before we jump in, I almost forgot.
It's true.
It reminded me. Our beverage this evening, Jessica, what are we drinking?
We're just drinking wine.
Yes.
I have a white Pinot Gris.
And I've got a Pinot Noir. So I'm drinking red, which is befitting. So we chose this beverage because, spoiler alert, Mandela and Mary Gay end up back on Earth. Mm-hmm. Is that how I pronounce her name? Mary Gay?
Mm-hmm. That's how I've been pronouncing it, so
perfect.
I hope so.
As long as we're all on the same page, I'm good. End up back on Earth, and they decide to spend all their money on a trip around the world, which is exactly what I would do in their situation.
Totally what I would do, too.
But they go to London, they have a lovely meal, he gets steak with wine, she gets seafood with wine, so we weren't sure what they were drinking, so we split it 50-50.
There you go.
At least we're going to pretend like we did that intentionally and not because that's just what we had opened.
Yeah, pretty much. Not that reasoning.
It's fine. So, that is our cocktail for this evening. If you'd like, open a bottle of your favorite wine and drink along.
But leave
or Stephen drinking.
I have pink cranberry juice.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Also sounds good for the
That sounds
digestive
nice.
tract.
Yeah. While you guys go grab your wine, just go ahead, leave the podcast running, then come back, and then just pick up from the beginning again and start playing it from the beginning again with your wine this time. Just go ahead and give us the 2 views/listens. Thank you.
Yeah,
There you
that'd be
go.
great.
Yes, I do. So we open, and they are in a ship called the Anniversary, which seems to be what I would equate to an aircraft carrier in space,
Yeah.
in terms of size, because they've got several squads, or what they call squads. I'm not entirely sure how big the squad is, so I don't know if it's the equivalent to the current Army squad or not, but they call them squads. In any case, they are trying to outrun the Taurons while heading towards a Tauron base that they're going to try and take over.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I always run into issues with these kinds of books. I understand why they're doing it, just because a writer probably really appreciates it. But the attempt to educate me on the theories of relativity and the necessary difference in timelines on how this works, not going to lie, I struggled reading through this because I was like, this doesn't make... Sure
Yeah.
thing.
I get the point of a sci-fi trying to describe relativity to people. I don't think anybody has successfully described it that I have read. Not that I've read a lot of sci-fi, but like the one thing that I know showed relativity really well was like Interstellar showed relativity really well. But like I think there was a line that was basically all you needed, but it was said after all that jargon, which was just Mandela going, basically they're in the future. Like, and we're now.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're fighting their future selves. Like, that's just how, like, that's all I needed. I don't need the theory of relativity done so many times. The other theory that also likes to be thrown around is Schrodinger's theory of the multi-dimension universe. And I have read several descriptions of that one.
But yeah, no, I am with you. I'm like, I could have dealt with 2 sentences in total.
Yeah,
The first being that, so they are always our future, we're their past, but then we will also be their future and they will be our past at some point. It will flip. We
It's
don't know where. But
It's like,
will flip.
it's almost like how Arizona doesn't do daylight savings time. So like when we go visit San Diego, we know there's a time where it's like, oh, it's going to be even time. Like, I'm going to need this much time. But then we know there's also that time period where we save an hour. So you're like, yeah, I traveled into the...
Honestly, when people start talking about daylight savings time, and they're like, okay, no, it's this time here and this time there. I do the exact same thing that you guys were saying about when someone starts to go into a technical explanation. I zone out and I think I can Google current MST time or current central, whatever I need right then to find out. Nothing else matters. Don't try to inform me of the difference that we have right now that won't be there later.
That's
Yeah.
it.
I
The only
have also
other line that I
recently...
needed- Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I've also recently discovered the atomic clock, like time.gov,
Mhm.
and I used it for timing certain things when I was in a certain place where I needed to do certain
There you
things at a very set time. So I was like, wow, this is great. I can know the time in the entire world on one page. It was really awesome. I liked looking at it. Sorry.
The only other sentence that I felt was really necessary was that 2 years, their 2-year tour in space was 21 years on Earth. I was
Yep.
like, excellent.
Yeah. Got
That
it.
tells me the extent of what I need to know. Like, that's it. But at the same time, a whole lot happened for those 21 years. But we'll get to that because I feel like that was a little excessive in terms of the amount of shit that can happen in 21 years. Being that I think we're all turning 30 this year, just feels excessive.
I don't know. See that. Well, we'll get there later. But that's actually part of my argument why it's not so crazy.
Okay, fair. We'll get there. But
There's
anyway,
one aspect of it that's crazy, but like...
but so we meet up with them. They're racing around the Taurons trying to dodge them. We discover that they have established new technology in these 2 years themselves with these suits that get pressurized on the inside and then get pressurized on the outside so that you can withstand the 5, 6, 10 Gs, whatever you need to.
The chafing from it can be critical, apparently.
So they go through a practice run, and then they find out that the Taurons have even higher technology than they have at this point.
In the future.
Because they're in the future, and that's where we get this whole relativity discussion. I just kind of like let go away. I was like, it's fine till we get to that last sentence. But then the Taurons attack. They all get in their suits. And the Taurons manage to blow up a third of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
I did like how, like, Mandela didn't know it till, like, hours later. He's like, what's wrong? What do you mean people are dead? And I'm like, we got hit.
But quite honestly, I think that's much more realistic than because you hear the trope all the time of like, oh, well, that history's wrong. I was there because you're some ancient being. And I'm like, I don't usually know what's going on in the next county over, and I'm pretty well informed.
Yeah.
So
I know, right?
I don't buy that you happen to know what was going on the other side of the world in 1602.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't a thing.
It's that vampire theory that vampires know everything, but like you ask a vampire something, they're like, I don't know. I was like getting drunk in Barcelona when that was going on. Like,
exactly. So I did appreciate that much more realistic. Like,
yeah, like
in a military campaign, the left hand never really knows what the right hand is doing. That's kind of the whole point.
No.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, blow up a third of the ship, several dead. Mary Gay ends up with a slit that basically starts at her collarbone and goes all the way to her pelvis, and her guts are falling out, which was all very gruesome.
She's fine.
She's fine. She doesn't.
But I like how it was just like it was her suit because she was getting this weird bruising in like the same spot right before, and it's like they didn't fit these to female formed bodies correctly. That's a surprise.
The thing that they said for it was that it had like a crease. So I guess that would lower the effectiveness because that area where the other part is touching the other part, I guess, like if it goes over, then it's like a double force on the thing where it's expecting one of the force, you know?
Yeah.
It was very odd, but I don't know. It makes me think of like when you get like a pressure bruise, if you're like, you don't like necessarily hit your thumb with the hammer, but the nail pinches your finger, and so you have like a little blood blister kind of thing. It's that, but your whole body.
But your entire body.
And
but like,
go ahead.
Yeah, but I will note like one thing that it did point out to me, which I didn't think of it till like just now, but like Mary Gay noticed there was an issue with it, and she tried to correct it. But now you don't get the point of view of like that conversation she had because Mandela goes off to do something else. But like I like without a doubt know it's like her saying, hey, there's something wrong with my suit, it's giving a crease, and then the people who were like in charge of it were like, hey, you'll be fine, like because that's just how it is until boom, you're about to die. Like I just
talk about serious workman's comp. But so she is then recovering, but there are concerns because they're going to have to do multiple Gs, so they're going to need to get back into the suits, but she can't get back into her suit, let alone another suit. So then we get into more physics discussion with the head medic.
I did like that one. That one I enjoyed.
I did appreciate
no, it won't work
like
this.
Well, I'm a physicist, so let me handle the physics. And then it's like, no, but you're not thinking about this. I'm the medic. Let me handle the medical. And it's like, but you're not thinking about this. It's like, oh, maybe if we combine our brain power, we can do something. And it's like, wow. I'm glad we figured out collaboration.
And I was still like, wait, what did they do? Like, got in a pool? Okay.
But the admiral in charge of their spaceship makes the determination that they're going to return back to Stargate instead of continue on with their mission even though he might be court-martialed, which I did appreciate that the rest of the troops are like, we don't care. We don't care. So they spend the 10 months going back to Stargate, which makes their tour complete. And although the rules have changed since they left, and enlistment is no longer 2 years, it's now 4 years of service, they are still given one-way tickets back to Earth and told they're guaranteed a position anywhere they want as trainers if they re-up.
Just like, I know it's jumping ahead, but like, I'll get to it when we get to the end of this, because that is just the best. This was, to me, the best representation of how the military works. Like, this little tidbit of, yeah, you'll be a trainer and you'll get to choose what base you're on. And then what happens? And it's just like, that's exactly what happens in the military. Like, exactly word for word what happens in the military.
But in any case, so they all head back. Mandela lands back. They are the first round of veterans back because they were the first round of veterans out. And it has been 21 years since they left, but they have only aged 2 years. Mm-hmm. So there's now really weird time distinctions. Mm-hmm. But in any case, Mandela returns home to find out that his father has died and his mother is living in a high-rise now. There apparently was a rations war, and that cut the global population down to 4 billion, and now it's back up to 9 billion, and everything is handled through the UN. Yeah. Everything is done based on calorie rations. Mary Gay's parents have ended up in a commune because her dad did something illegal and basically was given the option of go to prison or go to commune prison.
Yeah, because of the way jobs work in this time. Jobs work.
And although they have huge amounts of money because they've been obtaining a salary for 21 years and the time value of money, because of how much more expensive everything is, it isn't actually that much money. In any case, they go home. Mandela discovers that you have to hire a personal bodyguard to exist in the world. Mm-hmm. And he's got to go to a black market dealer for a job because he has too much money to get a job. That's yeah. And in any case, and his mom is working as a black market radiologist, basically.
Yeah.
It seems like
she's working someone else's job.
Correct.
Yeah.
And he really wants to work as a physicist, teaching, doing research. And basically the black market dealer is like, yeah, you're not going to be able to teach because I can't have somebody who's public facing. And apparently school is now which was very poignant for 2020. School is all online in giant
yep.
arenas, which is a little disturbing, but that's okay. A little too close to home for this year.
One of the things that I think was actually interesting is that basically everyone, like the job economy is basically everyone has everything but also nothing in jobs, which is kind of what jobs are now. Like everyone is doing, like we treat like the idea of like a side hustle or gig work as what people would have previously done as like careers. That's kind of where we have ended up, and it was pretty interesting. I mean, we're not at a point where calories are the currency, but
yeah, who knows? But in any case, so he gets on the list for a black market job. He goes and purchases a cannon, a hand cannon. I mean, really, that's what that is. At first, he wanted a laser. Then the guy, and I did appreciate the fact that he had to keep reminding people, like, no, I have no idea what's going on. I left 21 years ago. I got no clue what's going on. Try again. Homosexuality has become basically the norm.
Mm-hmm.
In an effort to reduce population, it's highly encouraged. He meets up with Mary Gay. They decide to take a trip around the world. They get to London. He kills somebody because they're trying to rape a girl and basically gets told, no, leave that to the police. Through interrogation under hypnosis, which there's all sorts of issues that I have with that from a legal standpoint, but that's besides the issue. And they decide that they don't know enough about this world to continue on their trip.
Which is quite possibly, like, between that idea and having to constantly just readjust to the world in general and constantly remind people, like, no, I'm asking a basic question. For me, for you, this is just a part of life, but I am not familiar with this. That's, I think, one of the most potent like commentaries on as a person who was coming back from the Vietnam War. Like, it was a massive time of change for everything in general. So he was not at all far off from what that would seem like, even though obviously we're talking in like these like crazy extended kind of ways with like aliens and everything else. That's representative of that experience.
No, very true. It is very, very true. So, and I think it was also the wisest decision they made in this entire section was like, maybe we take it slow. Maybe we go home. We figure out which end is up. Then we'll worry about taking a global trip in the world we don't understand. But they go back. Mandela finds out that his mother has taken a lover that he didn't know about. It makes him very uncomfortable. He gets adequately scolded for it, but he decides to head to Mary Gay's home in the commune with her parents, where they're subsistence farmers. And he goes, he very much enjoys the just hands-on labor, the community. They take turns doing watchtower, and then the commune gets raided. And Mary Gay's parents both die. And Mary Gay finally kills somebody because, as we remember from the first part, she refused to kill a Tauron. And so she struggled with that, but she ends up killing the thieves as they try to come in the front door after having shot her mother, which, quite honestly, is a pretty triggering experience and would probably make a person who's not comfortable with taking another life a little more comfortable with it if your mother's dying in your arms.
Yeah.
Tonight. It must have been something they did.
So they end up going back to Mandela's mother's just to get away from the commune because there's really nothing left for them there. And they discover that because Mandela's mother has turned 70 and she's been deemed unimportant, she's been given a health care rating of 0, meaning she is not to receive any medical treatment.
Which is honestly, like, again, a good parallel to now in so many different ways, because essentially she's determined to be not a priority because she is over the age of 70. To the government and all the other systems that would determine these kinds of things. She also has no job. She's just living off of whatever thing that she's given, like the government stipend kind of thing. Like if everything is computer run or by people, like you have just like a basic system. Like I remember when I was a kid and we were too poor to pay for healthcare, but we made just enough money that we would not get any kind of like benefits, you know? So we were just stuck in this middle spot.
Yeah. Well, it's not that, I mean, it happens nowadays too in like extreme situations. Like when you have a really like massive, like 500 people are injured. And in that time, like you have to go through and you tag them on who is worth saving and who's not. And you determine it by their age and all these other things that go with it that like they like, I don't have time. I can actually save this life kind of. So, I mean, it does happen in very extreme situations here. And I do believe it's even happened during COVID when the hospitals get way overrun. They have to choose who to ventilate and who to not. So, and those are the choices, are the economic and the who's actually benefits from living more, or how kind of. It's very detached, but it's something you kind of have to do sometimes.
Except at least typically in triage situations, it's more likeliness of survivability and not necessarily your worth as a human being should you survive.
In that situation,
this is definitely way more extreme, but
she does get ruled out for being over 70, though. That's part of that one. Like in a triage situation, if you have like a person who's 70 or whatever, and a person who's 25, and they both have the same condition,
she's graded because she's over 70. She is not deemed 0 because she's 70. She is deemed a 0 in this situation because she doesn't have political clout. She isn't a teacher or a doctor. I mean, so it is very much about her economic worth, and that's not typical in triage situations.
I mean, that was true.
Yeah.
And the situation you're talking about, Stephen, is far more common in the U.S. than it is in places like the U.K. or Canada, where they do have a nationalized healthcare system, which does provide care to. And in emergency situations, even in the U.S., you will receive treatment. Now, you may not seek out preventative treatment, or you may not receive treatment as early as you should because you can't afford it. But if you are brought into an emergency room because you can't breathe, you will receive treatment. I mean, that's the way this works. That's the determination that's been made. Not all hospitals and not in all situations, but you will almost always be able to receive care somewhere.
They do still have the Hippocratic Oath. So, and they do still have to follow the Hippocratic Oath.
But in any case, this situation basically is the straw that breaks the camel's back for Mandela and Mary Gay, and they decide to re-up after talking with Mandela's brother who's living on the moon, Luna, and they determined, sorry about that, they determined that they're going to re-up and get stationed as trainers on the moon. And Mandela, this was the part of this section that I was like, thank you. Thank you for at least being intelligent enough to go, no. I want it in writing.
No, in writing. Okay.
I'm not signing this till you put that in writing.
I love you.
Like, yes, it doesn't work out in their end, but I did appreciate the fact that he knew enough to be like, no. Put it in writing.
Okay.
Put it in writing.
This is where you will be for 1 hour, and then, boom, new contract. You can't do nothing. You have no rights right now. Military.
So
I had the position for an hour.
So they land in Luna. They barely have been able to unpack and put on their military uniforms, and they get new orders to go back to the front lines.
For people who were only in the military for 2 years, they are very accepting of this situation. Like, there wasn't even kind of like but wait, no, really, like, just the tiniest kind of like, man, well, we did get the position.
This also,
it's just so short when she says it. She's like incredulous about it, and he's like, I mean, we did get the position of our choice.
We had it for an hour. Here we go. She's like, yeah. I mean, they did actively say that we're going to train you and we're going to actively shoot at you during the training, and you guys will die. Like, it's...
Yeah. I feel like
the
military situation of it all really kind of...
It's just like, yeah.
Sped up the breakdown process. But, so here's my issue with how much has changed on Earth in 21 years. For the entirety of the 20th century, the 21st century, I have never historically known a war to start and end and be moved past to the next segment in less than 21 years. I mean, come on. We're still in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it's been 19 years.
How long was the Vietnam War?
Mid-50s to the mid-70s. It was at least 20 years.
But that's what I mean. Like that one's pretty close to that.
Well, except in their description, the ration wars occurred and were over, and we lost. I mean, because we got down to 4 billion, and we're now back up to 9 billion. So it didn't just end. Like it had to have ended a while ago.
The idea of like the rations war, it's more of like a thing of like resources and such. Like don't get me wrong, there are like actual conflicts in this one, but it's not like the whole thing for it was like it wasn't like Road Warrior everywhere and people were like punching each other for a Gatorade. Like I think it's a lot more like
you had massive killings and uprisings from people, and you killed off half the population.
For that one, I still don't think it was as crazy as what the other stuff was, because everyone, like, people did things, and then it's still like it essentially people tired themselves out in the thing.
Yeah,
I just have a real hard time with the concept that a global war took. Maybe 5 years.
That's not my issue.
Seem rational.
No, that like, can happen in 5 years.
If you get to a point where everything is about something that's a global resource, I think it would boil down a lot faster, because you get to a point where you're starting to use that resource that you're fighting over to fight the war, and at some point in there, people like not that cooler heads will prevail. It's that one person's gonna go, shit, we can do this. I'm sorry, we can do this for 2 more years, and we have no more of this. They have 2.5 years worth of this, and then what will we have? And just simple.
It's not a global resource, because not all people, not all places are situated to grow food sufficiently.
That's the thing. Not everyone is situated to like grow food and everything. But the places that grow food don't also do a lot of the industrial things. At this point, we would have already had like a global economy beginning in a real big way, even though it wasn't as crazy as it is now, where everyone is like so codependent, you know? It's just, I think you would already be in a spot where people would realize we can't succeed without this other thing being here. So fighting with the people who do all the production.
I agree with your premise, except for I don't agree with your timeline. It's not a 2-year question. It's easily a 10, 15-year question.
I'll take that one. I understand.
Like, it's just that's not something you resolve. I mean, because quite honestly, our wars in the Middle East have mostly been about oil, which is a finite resource.
The only other thing I would say for this one is that in this world, it might have also just been companies that were vying for like military, like the military complex side of things. Mm-hmm. It could have all just been like this giant falsehood, like an actual war. It's like people are playing chess, but with like real world things.
Well, I mean, they're already doing that in our world, and it just takes them a lot longer to complete the chess game than 2 years.
It's true.
I don't need a 2-page description of relativity. I need like a 2-page description of how the United Nations takes over the world.
Right? Thank you. Because what I need. Powerful government. I'm like, I don't think you understand.
And then the United Nations took over all of the governments, and I'm like, the United States government does exist, and I don't think they'd be okay with this. Like, I need to know how this happened.
This whole time period for sci-fi or anything that had like a basis in any kind of real world thing, everyone talks about the UN so much. So much.
I've noticed that before.
And like anytime, like now, if we're in a real world situation, the UN is basically the Supreme Court. Like it has power because people say it has power still. If anyone really disrupts anything, it sits back and goes like, I don't know anymore, and then it has no power. Like it's paper currency. The UN is paper currency.
Yeah. But so that was where I was like, nah. Now you don't have a global war over food and the ability to ration things and a class war in a 5-year time period. Because it definitely, like, when the, recent From Earth guy comes up to Stargate and is explaining this, like, he's like, oh yeah, no, it happened and then it was over and this is how we switched and this is now where we're at. And like, I'm like,
I totally forgot about that part. The guy from Earth, and he was like the gay guy, but he was like the gay guy of gay guys. Like where he was like, what did Mandela said? Like he was very clean faced and like wearing makeup and had his nails manicured, and it was really described like I'm gay. Deal with it. This is normal now. Like, and I laughed so much. I was like, this is a 1970s book. Like this is great.
I mean, that's perfectly, but yeah, no, I'm like, no, you don't completely upend, you don't switch currencies in 21 years and have people completely accept it and have all other currency completely disappear. Like, even as we switched from the gold standard, so we weren't even introducing a new currency, we were just changing how we valued currencies. That still took the globe 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't have to do it a country. So, and there are still people who are like, no, give me gold. The one thing, generations on at this point.
I do think the one thing that makes it way easier for them to have facilitated a super fast change was to have no middle ground. They didn't have like silver notes or anything where it's the previous currency backed by the other one. It's just, no, this is the new one. That's hiding everything in inflation and redistributing all wealth. In that one, they could 100% have done it. I don't know if it goes that fast, but that facilitates a much quicker change.
I feel like there had to be some like telepathic squid from outer space attacking Earth at the same time in several spots for this to happen.
If you don't catch the reference, please go back and watch the Watchmen and listen to the Geeks Watch episodes from early 2020 in January, where we discussed this very issue.
Yes. I did want to say one thing for the person that they have talked to them, because they have the person who, like you said, was very much like this like caricature of the furthest extent of this kind of idea. They do talk about the idea that when they get back to Earth and everything and they look around them, they're like, pretty much everything is, wait, so much for what they told me about this or that. They basically gave them like a deep idea of what the stuff is supposed to be. So then when they actually got into that situation, it's actually a lot lighter. Like they set the bar high, and then they like overpromised and underdelivered on that one, so it wasn't as crazy of a time getting back. Because they also say there's like 18 years mandatory school, but school is just like, well, I'm here, I get an A.
Yeah. Well, and that's basically to slow entry into the workforce.
Yeah.
The more schooling you require, the later in life people enter the workforce. So hopefully the less time they spend in the workforce. So you've got, if you've got issues with too high unemployment, that's an easy way to adjust that. That's why colleges were pushed so heavily when inflation was super high in the 70s and you were having issues getting people jobs.
Education was also another heavy theme in a lot of 70s and 80s sci-fi.
It's true. Yeah, this is true. But in any case, yeah, that was probably, I'm like, no, 21 years, this is not enough time. Like, you easily need at least 2 to 3 generations for quite this much. Like, I get that technological growth is exponential, but societal growth and change is not exponential.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the rules for hard sciences and the rules for soft sciences are vastly different.
The one that I think accelerates social change, which they do not have in this world, would be the internet. Like, the internet obviously hastened social change drastically, but they do not have that in this world. They even have like just normal phones. He dials an operator at one point in there.
Operator, yeah.
And I mean, at least they got that part.
A picture shows up. But I would say yes, Stephen, the internet drastically increased social change. Because of that dramatic increase, you're now getting a pushback.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm. And you don't quite see that pushback. It gets kind of alluded to that, like, the people on the moon are these crazy anarchists. But if things were to have changed this much in a 21 year, so in a generation, if they were to have shifted that dramatically, there would be a lot more pushback on Earth. Like there would be huge amounts of pushback that just don't appear.
I mean, I agree. Unless the world collectively decided what I eat doesn't make you poop, like, and then just decided everyone else can do what they want, then it would be fine.
I mean, that would be great, but we don't function that way as a species. Like, I got centuries to prove that. To prove that we just don't operate that way. But in any case, so thoughts on our next section. We got one more section. Steven can't answer this because
it's been so long. I have no idea what happens next. I for the most part, the thing that I remember from this book is a few portions of the first part, and then like all of the ideas presented in the second part. The second part of this book was the most interesting part of this book for me.
Okay. So what do you think is going to happen? Like, what's going to be the big twist in section 3?
Personally, like I think it'll be something where the whole conflict that they have isn't as important as it was thought to be, but that's also looking at just the real world parallel of the Vietnam War. You know, I think that they alluded to it in this section when he says that in the past, like, war was something that was like in your face. Everyone knew what was happening with the war and everything. And then here, there's already this like lessening of people even paying attention. You guys were synced perfectly on screen, taking a drink right now. That was amazing. But yeah, so I think that's like that kind of thing we'll see in action for this.
Okay. Jessica, what do you expect to see? What do you look forward to seeing? What do you hope they don't do?
I don't even know what I hope. I don't know. I don't read a lot of war novels for a reason. Like, I watch a lot of war movies, but I don't read about war. So I don't know. I don't know. I hope he becomes a general.
I am really the thing I'm hoping not to see is the very cliche, like he finally meets a Tauron and has this exchange and becomes like an advocate for ending war. Because I'm like, that's great and that's a good moral to a story, but that's not realistic.
Don't read the later Ender books.
I mean, that's fair. The first one's fantastic, and I don't have a need to go on.
I mean, it kind of sort of happened in the first book, too, though.
Oh, yeah.
In this little thing. Like, it's introduced in the first book.
It's introduced in the first book, but it doesn't go to the full extent of the cliche, like...
Yeah, because, to be fair, he didn't realize
he was
actually fighting them. So.
Yeah.
Ooh, sorry. Spoiler alert. There's a major plot twist at the end of Ender Game.
Spoiler alert for a book that was first written as a novella in the 60s.
Yeah, like, I feel like at this point, if you need the spoiler alert, you weren't going to read it anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
But, okay. So fantastic. Any final thoughts? Because I know I definitely like took over on this one because I had lots of complaints about how global society would transition in 21 years.
I do think we still like we piped in. I think right, Alyssa, or Jess, like we talked during the summary.
We did. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I hadn't completely bulldozed over anybody.
Nah.
No, you have to do the summary because our brains don't work chronologically. Because I would have just started at the end to be like, and then the military gave them the position for an hour. And that was the best thing about the book.
This is all I want to talk about.
All we need to talk about, because that is true. Join the military. It's a great way to get a good career, but just know once you sign that contract, nothing in your life is guaranteed.
I was curious.
The government, yeah.
I was curious about in this one. When did the GI Bill begin?
19. Wasn't it after September 11th?
No, GI Bill was in the 60s.
Was it the 60s?
I'm pretty sure it was post Korea.
Because in here, like, there's no mention of anything even similar in here.
I feel like there was something after 9/11, though, I thought, that got changed. I don't understand.
I mean, there was a lot that changed after 9/11.
Somebody I knew. Yeah. Well, there's something that I remember a conversation I had a long time ago.
The GI Bill was originally passed on June 22nd, 1944.
Interesting.
But what changed after 9/11 was actually, I believe, the ability to pass it down. So you could use your GI Bill for yourself or for your kids. Your kids could utilize your GI Bill.
That's what it is. Somebody was talking about. Okay. All right. My bad.
Yeah, no, the GI Bill's been around for a long, long time as an incentive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's a great incentive.
It's a fantastic incentive.
Oh, yeah.
It's unfortunate that we need such an incentive to be able to get an education and survive, but
yeah,
it is a great incentive.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother set of questions and a whole nother podcast into it. Unto itself. Words are hard. It's late. I've had too much wine.
The wine is gone. Is the wine gone?
It's not gone, but it is my second glass for the evening, so...
Oh, because my second glass is gone, so... I win!
Jessica wins. Okay,
nothing.
Jessica,
I win nothing.
If people want to congratulate you on winning the wine drinking contest, where can they find you?
You can tweet me as J.M. Bailey Writes.
And Stephen, where can people find you?
You can find me all across social media as Peppermint Gentleman or Peppermint Gent.
You can find me with the rest of Geek Elite Media at Geek Elite Media, our Facebook page /Geek Elite Media. Please come join us on our Patreon page, where you can find extra exclusives and early releases, all sorts of fun things for this podcast and other podcasts. And if you can't join us on our Patreon, please rate, review, and subscribe on whatever podcatcher you have. It substantially helps us reach out to more people. Archived episodes of this podcast and other podcasts can be found at geekelitemedia.com. Until next time, this is the Love of Pages reminding you to keep turning those pages and always remember to
geek out.
Geek out.